She got the first aid kit from behind the bar. She did not ask him questions. He did not offer answers. A man she had never seen before, bleeding in the last booth of her calf at 11 at night, and she sat down across from him and she worked. When she was done, she brought him tea. He looked up at her with an expression she could not name and said, "Thank you." She said, "You can stay until you can walk." He stayed for an hour. He left money on the table, enough for the week's rent, no note. 3 years later, when her ex-boyfriend walked into that same calf and reached across the bar and put his hand on her arm, he had no idea who was sitting 2 stools away. He had no idea what he was walking into. He was about to find out. If you are new here, subscribe right now and hit that bell. Drop your location in the comments. Where are you in the world tonight? We want to know. Now, who was Nkechi Obi before all of this? She was 32 years old. She owned a small calf in the eastern part of the city. She had opened it at 26. 6 years of waiting tables and bartending, and doing exactly what she needed to do to get to the thing she actually wanted. You need to understand what it cost her to build it. Because this story is about a lot of things. One of them is what it looks like when a woman builds something real with her own hands. And then watches the people who doubted her have to stand in it. The calf was called 11. She had opened it at 11 in the morning on the 1st of November. She had been 26. She had liked the repetition of the number. It seated 24 people. It had good coffee and 3 rotating menu items, and the specific kind of atmosphere that takes years of effort to make look effortless. She had built all of it herself. Not metaphorically. Literally, she had painted the walls. She had sourced the furniture. She had built the menu and trained herself on the espresso machine until she could pull a shot that was worth paying for. Marcus had said, when she told him she was going to open a calf, that she was being unrealistic. He had said this with the particular confidence of a man who has never done anything unrealistic in his life and considers this a virtue. "You have no business experience," he had said. "I'm getting some," she had said. Bad neighborhood. Up-and-coming neighborhood. Most restaurants fail in the first year. Most restaurants are not this one. She had said all of it clearly and quietly, without raising her voice. She did not raise her voice with Marcus. That had been a rule she enforced on herself. Keep your voice down. Keep the peace. The problem with keeping the peace is that eventually you realize you have been losing the war. That had been a rule she had enforced on herself for most of their 4 years together. Keep your voice down. Keep the peace. Pick your battles. The problem with picking your battles is that eventually you realize you have been losing the war. She left him 14 months before she opened the calf. She opened the calf. The calf did not fail. By the time of the morning we are talking about, it had been open for 6 years. 4 full-time employees, 2 part-time. A profit in each of the last 4 consecutive years. Marcus did not know any of these details because Marcus was not someone she thought about. He was someone she had thought about a great deal in the first year after she left him, moderately in the second, rarely in the third, not at all after that. She had put him in a mental box that was labeled "this is done," and she had moved on. The problem with people you have put in a box is that sometimes they open it themselves. The calf had its own rhythms. She knew all of them. She knew that Tuesdays were slow until 11 and then steady until 2. She knew that Fridays were full from 8 to noon, and she needed an extra person on the machine. She knew which of the regulars took their coffee black, and which of them needed 5 minutes before they wanted to talk. She knew the small economy of a neighborhood that had been told it would not amount to much. and had decided to amount to something anyway, because sometimes that is what neighborhoods do. She had been part of that. She had been there when the bookshop opened, and then the pharmacy, and then the architecture firm that took the old warehouse space on the corner. She had been part of the thing before it was the thing. She liked that. She liked a lot about her life, which was something she had had to learn to allow herself. There had been a time when she had been careful about admitting that she liked her life, because admitting it out loud seemed to invite the universe to disagree. She had gotten over that. She liked her calf. She liked her neighborhood. She liked the particular light on the eastern windows at 6 in the morning when she came into prep. The way the space smelled before the coffee was on. The moment when it started to smell like coffee. The first customer who came in blinking and grateful. She liked the work. She had always liked the work. She had not always been able to do the work the way she wanted to do it. That had been the Marcus problem. At bottom. Not his skepticism about the calf, exactly, although the skepticism had been real. The deeper problem was that 4 years with Marcus had slowly, quietly, in the way these things happen, taught her to audit herself before she spoke. To check her own ambitions against his opinion before she moved on them. To treat his doubt as data. It had not happened in one dramatic moment. It had happened in 4 years of small moments. A comment here. A look there. The way he changed the subject when she talked about the business plan. The way he framed her confidence as naivety. The way she had internalized all of this so completely that by year 3 she had genuinely believed, for a few months, that he might be right. That she might be unrealistic. That the neighborhood might not turn around. She had left him on a Tuesday. She had written the plan on a Wednesday. She had opened the calf 14 months later. A cold November morning. She had stood outside for 20 minutes before she went in. She could not quite believe she was allowed to open the door. 6 years later, she had 4 full-time employees and 2 part-time, and a profit margin that would have surprised anyone who had ever told her the neighborhood was a risk. It did not surprise her. She had known the neighborhood. She had known herself. She had been right about both. What she had not known, on the night she found a man bleeding in the last booth, was that she was making a choice that would change the shape of everything that followed. She had not known it was a choice at all. She had not known it was a choice at all. It had looked, from the inside, like the only reasonable thing to do. You do not leave someone bleeding in the last booth of your calf. You get the first aid kit. You sit down. You do the work. She had done the work. She had built the calf to be a particular kind of place, not trendy, not conceptual, not the kind of place that changed its identity every 6 months based on what the food magazines were running, just good. Reliably, specifically good. Good coffee, made correctly, by people who understood what correctly meant. A small menu that changed slowly, the right temperature, tables that did not wobble. These things sound small. They are not small. They are what people remember when they decide to come back. They are what distinguishes a place that lasts from a place that does not. She had thought about all of them, and she had executed on all of them, and she had been doing it consistently for 6 years. And consistency, she had found, was the thing that most people underestimated, and that the calf required more than almost anything else. She was good at it. She had always been good at it. She had been good at the detail and the follow-through and the specific ongoing discipline of doing a thing well, without drama, without requiring applause. She had done it before the calf, in the restaurants where she had worked to save the money. She had done it in the planning phase, in the 14 months between leaving Marcus and opening the door. She had been doing it ever since. It was, she thought, the most fundamental thing about her. Not her ambition, not her taste, not her vision for what the caf should be. The consistency. The showing up. The doing the work every day whether you felt like it or not. Because the work was not about how you felt. Marcus had never understood that. He had thought she succeeded because she was talented. Talent was part of it. But talent without consistency is just potential, and potential does not serve coffee at 9:45 in the morning to people who need it. She showed up. She had always shown up. She would always show up. That was the whole of it. He walked into 11 on a Thursday morning in June at 9:45, which she knew because she had just looked at the clock and noted they were about to hit the mid-morning rush. She was behind the bar. She saw him come in. She processed his presence the way she processed information she had not requested. Factually, without drama, with the detachment of someone who has done a great deal of work on herself and intends to keep doing it. He had not changed very much. That was the first thing she noted. He was wearing what he always wore, a specific kind of business casual that he believed communicated professionalism and communicated, in fact, effort. He looked at her and he smiled the way he used to smile when he believed he had the advantage of a situation. "Nkechi," he said, "you look different." She was 6 months pregnant. She had not hidden this. She had not been hiding anything. She was behind the bar. 9:45 on a Thursday morning. Running her business, 8 months past her wedding to a man Marcus had never met and did not know existed. "Marcus," she said, "can I get you something?" He looked at her stomach. He looked at her face. He did the math in the visible, audible way that people do when they want you to see them doing it. "You got pregnant," he said, not surprised. "Something else." "Who, a medium flat white?" she said. "Or are you here for something else?" He sat down at the bar. That was the thing about Marcus. He sat down. He made himself comfortable. He had always made himself comfortable in spaces that were hers. Her apartment, her plans, her ambitions, her patience. He sat in all of them the same way, as if they had been arranged for him. "I heard you got married," he said. "I did," she said. "Fast," he said. "How long ago?" 2 years, she said. She put the flat white in front of him. He had not ordered it. She had made it because her hands needed something to do, and because it gave her a reason to be the one setting the terms of what was happening in this interaction. 2 years, he said. "So," he looked at her stomach again. "That's his." "Yes," she said. "What does he do?" She looked at him. She had spent 4 years with this man. She knew every version of this tone. This was the version where he was trying to establish whether her choices since leaving him had been better or worse than him. Whether she had upgraded or downgraded. Whether he could be magnanimous about it or whether he needed to be dismissive. "He runs a company," she said. This was accurate. Riku ran several companies. Which of those companies was at the front of the portfolio depended on the year. All of them were real. All of them were his. The overall picture was not something she needed to defend or detail for Marcus. "What kind of company?" Marcus said. "The kind that does well," she said. "Was there something you needed? Or are you just catching up?" He leaned back. He put his hands around the coffee she had not asked him whether he wanted. He did the thing he used to do where he looked at her with an expression designed to communicate that she was being unnecessarily difficult, when in fact she was being entirely reasonable. "You seem tense," he said. "I'm working," she said. "Right," he nodded. He looked around the caf. She watched him taking inventory, the way he used to take inventory of everything she did, looking for evidence that he had been right, that she had been unrealistic, that this had gone about as well as he had predicted. She watched him not find that evidence, and she watched him adjust. "Place looks good," he said. "I'll give you that." She did not need him to give her that. She did not say this. "You were right," he said, "about the neighborhood. I didn't think it would turn around this fast." She said nothing. "I always believed in you," he said. "You know that. I just thought the timing was off." She looked at him. She had heard this before. Not this exact sentence, but this category of sentence. The retroactive support. The rewrite of history in which his doubt had been concern, in which his dismissal had been caution, in which he had been on her side all along, just in a way that had looked, from the outside, exactly like not being on her side. "You were pretty clear about what you thought," she said. "I don't need you to revise it." He held up his hands. "I'm not revising. I'm acknowledging that things turned out well. Can't I do that?" "You can," she said. "Is that what you came in for?" He paused. That pause told her something. There had been a reason he came in. Not coffee. Not catching up. Something else. She let the pause sit there, and she let him figure out whether he was going to say it. "I've been going through some things," he said. Professionally, she waited. "There's an opportunity I'm looking at. It would be better with some local backing, someone established in the area." He looked at her. Someone with a visible presence. She understood what he was saying. He had come in because his professional situation was difficult, and he was looking for someone to attach himself to. He had decided she was an option. He had decided that their history made her a natural candidate. He had decided, in the specific way Marcus decided things, that the world had arranged itself for his convenience, and she was part of the arrangement. "I see," she said. "I thought we could talk about it. Catch up properly. Have dinner." She was opening her mouth to respond when the side door opened. Not a customer. Ishida, who she had known for 2 years by now, and who communicated primarily through precision and silence, held the door for Rikyo, and Riku came in. He came in the way he always came in, without announcement. A dark jacket. A calm that was not the absence of awareness. The presence of complete control over how much of it he showed. He came to the bar. He looked at her. The specific quality of that look, the checking quality, the "are you all right" quality, told her that Ishida had perhaps said something. Or Riku had a sense for the room that she had learned not to underestimate. "Good morning," he said to her. "Good morning," she said. She had said those 2 words to him thousands of times. In the caf, at home, on the phone when he called to check in, she would say them thousands more. She had stopped tracking the number. Some things you stop tracking because they are simply what life is now, and you do not need to count what belongs to you. He looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at him. 2 men at a bar, assessing each other in the way men assess each other when they understand the coordinates of a situation, but not all of the details. "This is Marcus," she said. An old friend. Marcus, to his credit or discredit, extended a hand. "Marcus Ise," he said. "You must be the husband." "Yes," Riku said. He shook the hand briefly. He sat down 2 stools from Marcus. He looked at Nkechi. "I'll have whatever you're making," he said. She made his coffee. She put it in front of him. She watched Marcus recalibrate in real time, taking in the composure. The way Yoshida had positioned himself near the door, professional, quiet, communicating something precise about the nature of his role. "What line of work are you in?" Marcus asked. Riku looked at him the way you look at someone who has asked a question you are deciding whether to answer. "Several," he said. Nkechi mentioned you run a company. "Several," Riku said again. Marcus tried another angle. You must be proud of her, he said. He gestured at the calf. What she's built here. I used to tell her she had a gift for this kind of thing. Ninkechi did not say anything. She was very interested in a spot on the counter that needed wiping. I know what she has built, Riku said. Not warmly, not coldly, with the specific precision of a man who has said exactly what he meant to say and not a word more. Marcus shifted on his stool. He was good at reading rooms, it was one of his actual skills, and he was reading this one now. She could see him reading it. She could see him arriving at the conclusion that whatever ground he had thought he had when he walked in, he no longer had it in the same way. I should probably let you two, he started. You mentioned a professional opportunity, Ninkechi said. She looked at him directly. You were going to ask me something. Marcus looked at Riku. Riku drank his coffee. Maybe another time, Marcus said. I'm here now, she said. A pause. Marcus was very aware of Riku. He was trying to figure out exactly who Riku was, and he was not finding the answer in the available information. He could see the jacket. He could see Yoshida. He could see the way the room had arranged itself around this man, without the man appearing to do anything to arrange it. He could not see the specifics. The specifics were not available to him. I'm looking for a local partner, Marcus said, more carefully now. Someone to co-sign on a lease, introduce me to some business contacts in the area. I thought. No, Ninkechi said. He blinked. You didn't let me finish. You were going to ask me to use my reputation and my network to support a venture you're putting together, she said. The answer is no. Not because I think it would fail, though I don't know enough to say, because I don't mix my business with personal history. I haven't for 6 years and I'm not going to start. He looked at her for a moment. She could see him deciding how to play it. She could see him considering magnanimous, and then considering wounded, and then considering appeal to the past. We had 4 years together, he said. We did, she said. And when they were over, they were over. I don't hold it against you. I don't carry it. But I don't owe you anything out of it either. He looked at Riku, as if Riku might soften this. Riku was looking at Ninkechi with an expression she had learned over 2 years meant he was paying very close attention and saying nothing because there was nothing for him to add. Marcus stood up. He put some money on the bar. You've changed, he said. Yes, she said. I have. He left. The door closed. Yoshida watched it close. Riku finished his coffee. The calf had 3 other customers, and none of them were looking at the bar. Life in a calf continues at its own pace, regardless of what is happening at the bar, which is one of the things Ninkechi had always liked about it. The calf had 3 other customers, and none of them were looking at the bar. Life in a calf continues at its own pace, regardless of what is happening at the bar, which is one of the things Ninkechi had always liked about it. The couple in the window were still talking about whatever they had been talking about when Marcus walked in. The man with the laptop was still looking at his screen. The older woman who came in every Thursday at 9:30 was still reading her book. None of them had any idea what had just happened at the bar. That was fine. That was how it should be. Ninkechi breathed out. She had not realized she had been holding herself at a particular tension until she let it go. She picked up Marcus's cup and she washed it, and she put it away. She looked at the money he had left on the bar. She put it in the register. She went back to what she had been doing before he arrived, which was making the thing run. Riku stayed. He ordered a second coffee. He sat at the bar. He did not talk much, which was how he was. She moved around him the way she moved around everything in the calf, efficiently, without drama. with the ease of someone who knows the space well enough that she never has to think about it. He watched her the way he watched everything. That specific attentive quality that had surprised her the first few times she had been around him, and that she had come to understand, was simply how he was in the world. He paid attention. He paid very precise, complete attention to whatever was in front of him. She had found this unnerving at first. Now she found it one of the most reliable things about him. She had found quite a few reliable things about him over the course of the 3 years between the first night and the morning when Marcus walked in. She had found them the way you find things that matter, gradually, by accident, one piece at a time. He had come back to the café 11 days after the first night. Not injured. Just there. He had sat in the last booth again. It was the most defensible position in the room. She understood now that this was how he oriented himself in any space. He ordered coffee and a pastry. He paid for both. He left without making anything of the fact that he had been there before. She had not made anything of it either. She had brought the coffee. She had gone back to work. He had come back the following Tuesday. And the Tuesday after that. By the 5th visit, she knew his name. He had told her because she had asked, because she had decided to ask, because she was a person who believed in knowing the names of the people who came into her space. His name was Riku Tanaka. He told her this the way he told her most things, directly, without explanation, as if it were simply a fact that was available for her to have now. By the 8th visit, she knew he came in when he needed somewhere quiet that was not any of his own spaces. She knew this because he told her, on the 8th visit, when she asked, "You work nearby?" She had asked. No. Family? No. Then why here? He had looked at the café, then at her. It's yours. You built it. It doesn't belong to anyone else's situation. She had not been sure what he meant by that at the time. She thought she understood it better now. By the 3rd month, she knew certain things about how he occupied a room. She knew that he positioned himself so he could see the door. She knew that Ishida was always somewhere nearby, though not always visible. She knew that Riku wore his phone in his left jacket pocket and checked it rarely and never during a conversation. She knew that he thanked her every time she brought him something, in the same brief, precise way he had thanked her the first night, and that the gratitude was real rather than social. By the 6th month, she knew. The men who sometimes came to collect him from the café. The men who had been with him on the first night. They were part of something specific. The something specific was not legal in the conventional sense. This should have changed how she felt about his presence in her café. She sat with this information for about 2 weeks. She decided it did not change how she felt. She decided this because she had watched him for 6 months. What she had watched was a man who was careful and precise, who never asked for more than he was owed, who made sure the people around him had what they needed. She had the first aid kit, the folded money with no note, the fact that he had come back 11 days later and sat in the booth and ordered coffee and paid for it. She had what she could observe. What she could observe did not make her afraid. What she did not know yet in that 6th month was that Ishida had taken note of her. That he had told Riku, carefully, that the café owner was a person who kept the information she received, who did not speak about what she saw, who treated every visit as simply a visit, without drama or demand. Ishida had said this the way he said most important things, once, quietly, with the expectation that it would be heard and held. Riku had heard it. He had held it. Things moved slowly between them, which suited them both. She was not looking for anything. She was busy with the café. He was not a person who hurried about anything. What existed between them was a kind of companionable frequency. The same attention, the same economy, the same preference for the real thing over the performed version. She did not know she was falling into something. She was just working. He was just there. And then, one day, she looked up from making his coffee and understood that she had been looking forward to it for longer than she had noticed. That understanding was the beginning of everything else. He had asked her to dinner on a Wednesday evening in October, 14 months after the first night. He had asked her directly and without preamble, which was how he asked things. She had said yes directly and without preamble, which was how she answered things. The dinner had lasted 3 hours, and she had not wanted it to end, which she recognized as information. She had sat with it for a week and decided it was accurate. She had called him the following Wednesday and asked if he wanted to do it again. He had said yes immediately. She had decided that was also information. The relationship that followed was not what she had expected. Not the managed performance of togetherness she had spent 4 years constructing with Marcus. It was two people who had developed a thorough mutual understanding of what the other person actually was, and who had decided, on the basis of that understanding, to keep choosing each other. That was all. That was enough. It was, in fact, more than enough. It was the most she had ever had. "He grabbed your arm," Riku said. She blinked. "What?" "When I came in," Riku said. He was still looking at his cup. "He had your arm. You moved back, and he held on for a moment before he let go." She had not realized he had seen that. She had not realized she had been cataloging it herself until he named it. She remembered it now. Marcus reaching across the bar to put his hand on her forearm when she had started to turn away from him. Not violent, not aggressive, but not welcome either. The specific entitlement of a man who still believed, on some level, that her body had a history with him that gave him some access to it, that did not require her permission. "It was fine," she said. "I know," he said. He looked at her now. "You handled it. I'm not saying you needed help with it. I'm telling you I saw it." She looked at him. 2 years of marriage, and she still sometimes caught herself surprised by the specificity of his attention, by the way he noticed things and named them not to demonstrate that he had noticed, but because naming them was a form of being with her in what had happened. "It wasn't comfortable," she said. "No," he said. "I imagine not." He put his hand over hers on the bar. He did not say anything else. She stood there for a moment. She let herself feel the weight of it. The specific solidness of him. Not the absence of complexity, the presence of consistency. She had not previously understood that was what she actually needed. Now she did. What she did not know, what Marcus did not know, what no one in that cafe except Ishida knew, was that by the time Riku had put his hand over hers and said nothing else, a very specific series of things had already been set in motion. Not about Marcus specifically, about the business deal Marcus had been pursuing, the contacts Marcus had been trying to make. The lease Marcus had been hoping to co-sign was in the eastern part of the city. That was, as it happened, an area where certain arrangements applied. About who did and did not operate, who had a presence and who did not. Marcus would learn about these arrangements in the weeks that followed, not from Riku directly, from the people Marcus tried to contact, who were polite and unavailable, from the lease terms that did not come through, from the opportunity that turned out not to be an opportunity after all, at least not in this part of the city, not in this particular set of circumstances. Nothing dramatic, nothing visible. Just the quiet functioning of how things worked, moving without announcement in the direction they were always going to move. The baby came at 37 weeks and was perfect. 8 minutes of pushing, a hospital 2 blocks from the caf. Riku in the chair beside her because she had asked him to be there, and he had been there. Ishida in the corridor because he was always in the corridor. 3 nurses who moved with a specific practiced competence that Nkechi recognized and respected and was, in this particular moment, very grateful for. Riku held the baby. He stood at the edge of the room and looked at her for a long time. Then he looked at Nkechi. Then back at the baby. She had seen that expression before. Focused, still, committing to memory. "What do you want to name her?" he said. "Amachi," she said. "It means grace." He said it quietly, the way he tried everything that mattered, with his full attention on the shape of it. Then he looked at Nkechi with that expression and said, "Yes, that is right." The year that followed was not simple. She had known it would not be. She went back to work at 10 weeks, which was earlier than she had planned, because the calf pulled at her in a way that she had learned to trust rather than resist. Riku arranged care for Amachi that was comprehensive. She had a conversation with him about proportion. He received it without argument. She decided to tolerate the comprehensiveness because Amachi was thriving and she had learned to pick her battles. She took the baby to the calf some mornings. Amachi sat in the carrier and watched the room with an expression that she was fairly sure she had seen somewhere before. Focused, curious, taking everything in without announcing that she was taking it in. Nkechi watched this and thought, yes, there it is, that expression. She is going to be like that. Precious came in twice a week. She had by now accepted Riku as a permanent feature of the situation. She watched Amachi one morning and said, "She looks at everything like she is filing it." Nkechi said, "Yes." Precious said, "She gets that from him." Nkechi said, "She gets it from both of us." Precious looked at her and then looked at the baby and said, "Yes, I suppose she does." And that was one of the truest things anyone had said about any of it. There is something you should understand about what you have been watching in this story. Not the dramatic surface of it. The ex who walked in. The husband who was not what he appeared. The quiet correction that followed. Those things are real, but they are not the story. The story is what was there before any of that. A woman who built something with her own hands in a neighborhood people said was a risk. Who opened a side door and kept it unlocked. Who got the first aid kit without being asked. Who served coffee to a man for 7 months with his specific preferences and did not require either of them to name what that meant until they were both ready to name it. You cannot build love. You can build the conditions for it. You can build a space that is yours, that is real, that belongs to no one else's situation. You can leave the door unlocked. You can do your work. You can be precisely and completely who you are, without apology, without editing yourself down into something that fits more comfortably into what someone else expected. And then you can wait. Not passively, not in suspension, but in the active ongoing way of someone who is building something, who knows that the building is the thing, and that the right people will recognize what has been built. Nkechi had done all of that. She had left a man who made her audit herself. She had built a calf in a neighborhood people said was a risk. She had gotten the first aid kit. She had made the coffee. She had said yes. She had built the whole thing, and the whole thing held. The neighborhood had done exactly what she said it would do. She had watched it from the calf every day for 6 years. The bookshop had come first, and then the pharmacy, and then the architecture firm in the old warehouse on the corner, and then the wine bar, and then the plant shop, and then more people, on the street, and then better people on the street, and then people who had once said it was a bad neighborhood coming in for coffee and mentioning, as if they had always believed this, that the area was really coming up. She did not point out what they had said before. She just made the coffee. That was a skill she had developed. Not saying the things she could say. Not because she was afraid of it, because she had decided that the work was its own argument, and she did not need to make it out loud. The calf standing, the profit margin, the 4 full-time employees, those were the argument. She just let them stand. Marcus had come into the space she had built and looked for evidence that she had been wrong. He had not found it. He had adjusted his account of history to include support he had not given. She had not accepted the revision. But she had also not torn it apart in front of him. She had let it go, because tearing it apart would have required her to still be invested in his version of events. And she was not invested. She had not been invested for a long time. She was invested in the calf, and the neighborhood, and Riku, and Amachi, and the specific life she had built in the space she had built for it. That was enough. That was more than enough. She had stopped needing Marcus to be wrong about her when she understood she was right about herself. That was when it stopped mattering, not when she succeeded in any external sense, when she stopped requiring external sense to confirm what she already knew. She had known what she was capable of. She had been right. She had not needed him to see it. She had just needed to do it. And she had done it. She had thought, before the meeting, that she might feel something when she saw him fail. Something like satisfaction, or relief, or the specific complicated pleasure of being vindicated. She had not felt those things. She had felt something more ordinary. She had felt the absence of something. The thing you feel when you set down a bag you had been carrying without noticing. Lightness where weight used to be. She told this to Riku one evening. He listened. When she finished, he said, "What was in the bag?" She thought about it. "The version of myself that needed his opinion," she said. "I carried it for a long time after I left him. I thought I had put it down. I had not put all of it down." He looked at her. He did not say anything. He did not need to. She could see that he understood. He was doing the thing he did, filing it carefully, carrying it as part of his understanding of who she was. She did not need him to respond to it. She just needed to have said it, and for it to have been heard. He heard it. That was what she had found in him, in the end. After the calf and the visits, and the Tuesday mornings, and the dinner that lasted 3 hours, and the marriage, and everything that came after. Not a rescue. Not a solution. A person who heard the things she said, and held them with the same care she put into them. A person whose precision and her precision were the same kind of precision, aimed at the same kind of things. The work, the truth of things, the difference between what was actually given and what was owed. She had given Marcus 4 years, and he had given her doubt. She had given the calf 6 years, and it had given her a life. She had given Riku a first aid kit at 11 at night, and he had given her, in the years that followed, the specific experience of being completely, accurately seen. You cannot buy that. You cannot demand it. You can only do your work and keep your door open and hope that the right person comes through it. Hers had come through the side door. Bleeding, at 11:20 on a Wednesday, and she had done what she always did, which was to assess the situation and do what needed to be done, and everything else had followed from that. Nkechi did not ask about this when she learned about it, several weeks later, from a source that was not Riku. She sat with it for a day. Then she said, in the evening, after dinner, while Riku was reading, The thing with Marcus's business contacts. He looked up. You didn't have to, she said. No, he agreed. But you did. He put his hand on your arm, Riku said. Without asking. She looked at him. That's what this was about? His hand on my arm? It was about what his hand on your arm meant, Riku said. It meant he still believes he has access to things that belong to you. I am not interested in allowing that belief to remain comfortable. She was quiet for a moment. You're not going to apologize for it? No, he said. She thought about this. She thought about the 4 years with Marcus. The way he had treated her ambitions like something to manage. The way he had treated her body like something that had a prior claim attached to it. The way he had walked into her café and sat down as if it had been arranged for him and made himself comfortable in the space she had built. She thought about Riku, who had walked into her café bleeding and left money on the table and never once, in 2 years of marriage, made himself comfortable in her things without asking first. Okay, she said. He went back to reading. She went back to what she had been doing, which was going over the café accounts for the month. The numbers were good. They were very good, actually. She looked at them for a while and felt the specific satisfaction of something you built with your own hands running the way you built it to run. He proposed on a Wednesday. She did not see it coming because he did not stage it. He came into the café at closing time, which he had never done before. He sat at the bar. She was closing out the register. He waited until she was done. Then he said, I would like to marry you. She looked at him. That's not a question, she said. I know, he said. I am not asking you if you want to marry me. I am telling you that I would like to. The question is whether you would like to marry me. She thought about this for a moment. She thought about the 48 months she had spent with Marcus, in which the question of their future had been a subject she was not supposed to raise directly. She thought about the Tuesday visits and the coffee she had been making with his preferred specifications for 7 months, without either of them naming what the specifications meant. She thought about how he had looked at her the first night. That careful assessing expression. He still looked at her exactly like that. She thought he had probably decided. She thought he had probably decided. Yes, she said. He nodded. He reached into his jacket pocket. He put a ring on the bar. It was the right size. She had not told him her ring size. She looked at him. He looked back at her with that expression. How did you know my ring size? She said. Ishida found out, he said. She picked up the ring. She put it on. She looked at it. Then she looked at him. Did you ask Ishida to find out, or did he find out on his own? Both, he said. She laughed. It surprised her. She had been laughing more than she expected to with him. He was not funny in any conventional sense. He was precise, and sometimes precision was funny in a way that only worked if you were paying attention. She was always paying attention. They were married 4 months later, a ceremony that was small and real, Precious as her witness, Ishida as his. Her mother on a video call, because her mother could not travel that season. The call ended with her mother saying, in her mother's tongue, that the man had very good manners, the highest praise available. Nikechi had translated this. Riku had received it with the same gravity he received everything. She had decided this was one of the things she found most consistent about him. He took the things that mattered to her and treated them like things that mattered. The baby moved. She put her hand on her stomach. She thought, you are going to be okay. You are going to come into a world where someone is paying that kind of attention, where someone sees the thing and names it and does not require you to explain why it matters, where the people around you are actually looking. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, almost everything. She had come close to not knowing that. She had spent 4 years with a man who looked at her and saw what was useful to him, and she had almost let that become the whole of what she expected. She had not. Quite. She had left. She had built the Café. She had opened the side door one night and found someone bleeding in the last booth, and she had gotten the first aid kit, and everything else had followed from that. There is something worth saying directly to you, here, at the end of this. You may be watching this in a place that does not feel like what you built. You may be in something that is asking you to audit yourself, to check your instincts against someone else's opinion before you act on them, to treat doubt as data. If you are in that, you know what it costs. It costs slowly. You do not notice until one day you are outside the door of the thing you wanted to build, and you cannot quite believe you are allowed to open it. You are allowed to open it. That is the thing nobody told Nkechi in time. Nobody told her she was allowed. She had to decide for herself, on a Tuesday, to leave, and then on a Wednesday to write the plan, and then 14 months later to open the door she had built herself. She did not wait for permission. She gave herself permission. That is the whole thing. That is the only thing. Your staying is never small. Your choosing is never small. The thing you build with your hands, year after year. In a neighborhood people said would not turn around. In a space you painted yourself. On a menu you designed yourself. In a life you decided to make rather than settle for. That thing is real. It stands. People come into it and sit down. Sometimes they are strangers who need help. Sometimes they are the ones who stay. Nkechi had not been looking for anyone when Riku came through the side door. She had been looking at the mop and thinking about the floor. She had been doing her job. She had been in the ordinary ongoing way of her life, simply being who she was. Someone who stays in the room, does the work, does not perform her competence but simply exercises it, every day, because it is hers and she has earned it. The right person sees that, not right away, not in a single moment. They see it in the third visit, and the fourth and the fifth, across the specific accumulation of evidence that builds into knowing rather than assuming. They look at what you actually are, and they do not require you to explain yourself or shrink yourself or wait for permission to take up the space you are already standing in. You deserve someone who looks at you and sees the whole thing. You deserve someone who notices the hand on your arm and names it without making it into a scene. You deserve someone who tells you they are not going to apologize for being on your side and means it, and does not need your gratitude for it. Just your presence. Nkechi had that. She had built the rest of it herself. That was the whole story. She had built the rest of it herself, and then the rest had arrived to fill what she had made room for. Some doors only open from the inside. She had been the one to open hers. What walked through it afterward was its own thing, and it was hers, and it was enough. There is a version of this story where you wait for someone to come and open your door for you, where you stand on the wrong side of the thing you want and you keep adjusting your expectations downward. Where you tell yourself the neighborhood is a risk and the timing is wrong, and you probably need a business partner. And anyway, who are you to open a café at 26? Where you stay 4 more years in a situation that does not see you. Because leaving requires believing you are worth the leaving. Do not wait. You are worth the leaving. You are worth the opening. The neighborhood is going to turn around. You know it is. You have known it for longer than you have been willing to say out loud. That knowing is not naivety. It is not wishful thinking. It is the specific accumulated knowledge of someone who has been paying attention. You have been paying attention. Trust what you know. Nkechi left on a Tuesday. She opened the door on a November morning. She got the first aid kit on a Wednesday night at 11:20. She said yes at a bar counter in her own café to a man she had built a thorough and accurate picture of over 7 months of Tuesday visits. She built the whole thing. She just needed to let herself start. You can start. You can start right now. Never underestimate the ones who show up every day. Not the dramatic ones, the consistent ones. The ones who are there when you close and there when you open. The ones who do the work when it is unremarkable, and the work when it is hard, and the work on the Tuesdays when no one is watching. Those are the ones who build the things that last. Those are the ones who know how to be found by the right people. Those are the ones who build a door and then, finally, open it. And Keki had opened hers. It had been worth every minute of the building. Months later, when the baby came, fast, uncomplicated, in the hospital 3 blocks from the café, Riku was there. He had arrived before her, which required some explaining since she had not called him until she was already in the car. He was standing in the corridor with Ishida, and that expression she had learned over 2 years, focused, still, something waiting that he was not going to name until there was reason to. She said, "I'm fine." His shoulders dropped. 2 words, and his whole body believed them. They named the baby Amachi. It meant grace in her mother's tongue. Riku said it quietly when she told him, testing the shape of it. Then he looked at her the way he looked at her when he had been going to say something, and decided she had already said it better. "Yes," he said, "that is right." She looked at them. Her husband holding their daughter, his thumb caught in both her tiny hands, his face with that expression she still sometimes caught herself surprised by, the focused, committed expression of a man who had found something he intended to keep, and was keeping it. She thought about the 11 in the name of the café. The 11 in the morning she had opened it. The 26 years old she had been. All the accumulation of ordinary choices between then and now. Not a single dramatic moment. A lot of small ones. Hers, all of them hers. Some debts are not paid in cash. Some are paid in the years you spend building something real. In a neighborhood people said would not turn around. In the side door you leave unlocked. In the first aid kit you bring without being asked, in the particular ordinary persistence of someone who knows what she is worth and does not require the world's permission to be it. Never underestimate the ones who stay in the room. They are not waiting. They are building. They have been building the whole time. You just did not know yet that you were watching the whole story begin. If you have been with this story from the beginning, what moment stayed with you? Drop it in the comments below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them right now. We will see you in the next one.